right. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, wherever you're watching from, whether you're watching us live or if you're catching us after the fact. If you are not yet up, seeing that it is Saturday morning. But as you well know, every Saturday we try to give you the rundown of the goings on in pop culture with our edition known as This Week in Pulp Culture. And of course, I'm not going to be alone in talking about some of the goings on this week. So it is my pleasure to welcome back after being back from a week hiatus, not being here last week. Welcoming back Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. What's going on, sir?
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? How we doing today? That's right. We
There
got
we
all
go.
kinds of
Right
new
on point.
stuff. We
Right
got
on.
new stuff today.
Right on
I'm
point.
just happy to be here. Today is a good day because technically the greatest of all time is still in the playoffs. Um, you know, I did not want them to play this team because I saw that this was what was going to happen because they just better than we are, ladies and gentlemen, and they just pushing
We're
us
gonna
in the
get into that.
face.
We're gonna get into
Ooh,
that. I love that you're objective about that though. So
ooh.
you guys are probably wondering what Spills is talking about, but as you well know, as of last Saturday, we are right in the heat of the NBA playoffs. It is in full swing. So give me a second. I'm gonna share Weird Things Stand right now. But while we're
Oh,
doing that,
oh, ladies and gentlemen.
let's see. While we are doing that, let's take a look at this bracket. Let's see if I can pull it up here.
This bracket should be called
Okay.
Father
All right.
Time is
Here we go.
Undefeated, ladies and gentlemen. Father Time is undefeated.
All right. So here we go. Should be shared up here. Yeah. Yeah. There we go. There we
Yeah,
go.
scroll up a
So
little bit so we can see the one
so
eight.
getting into some some overall highlights of where things stand in terms of the playoff picture. Um, Last Friday, of course, we had the conclusion of the NBA play-in tournament, and that saw the Lakers moving forward. And we also, with the Lakers moving forward, we had the playoffs commence the next day. But as I said, we had two teams on the east side and on the west that were able to advance forward to be the official 7 to 8 team. But only reason why I bring up the Lakers is because our co-host here is an avid Lakers fan. My team didn't make it through the play-in, so I'll objectively say, we won't getting into our cruises and our yachts right now. We were not in the playoff picture or the title
That's
picture.
right. We're looking at bungalow packages and
It's
all
all
kinds of
good.
other vacations.
It's
Excursions
all
is what we're
good.
looking for, ladies and gentlemen.
It's all good. But like I said, playoffs started last Saturday, and man, there have been some fascinating stories since each of the respective series in the East and the West conferences began, respectively. Just to give you some ideas of what happened just recently. Of course, we had a winner by Halliburton for the Pacers, now leading the series 2 games to 1. We had the Mavs getting a convincing win, taking a 2-1 lead. We had the T Wolves taking down the Suns for a commanding 3-0 series lead. Each of those games, they have not been close. They have been double-digit leads, with two of them just being straight-out blowouts. Uh, some further, storylines that I wanted to be able to dive into in looking at this playoff picture. And we'll start with what we have here on the left. But let me see if I can make the picture slightly bigger for you guys. So
Just
that way
scroll up. Just scroll up.
oh, I am. But I wanted to also make it a little bigger for
There
everyone.
you go. There we
Okay.
go.
All right. So,
Yeah,
in
there we go.
looking at the playoff picture, of course, we have the Thunder and the Pelicans that we have on the west side. Of course, the Pelicans were able to secure that eighth seed from what we had in the play-in. And in looking at what we have with this lineup, Spillman, a lot of times with some of the other matchups that we have, which I'm going to get into, despite what we have with the actual seeding, is still an interesting matchup. But in thinking of the matchup that we have here, considering what the Pelicans are lacking right now in terms of their lineup, I feel like it's pretty safe to say that this is pretty much a done deal in terms of a series. There isn't really much to really dive into here, in my opinion, because without Williamson, you take that wild card of Williamson out of the picture, it it's a completely different Pelicans team. So I don't know what your thoughts are with this series, if we're going to see any changes here, but I feel like it's pretty much a done deal, and it's a mute point that of what will result here.
Ladies and gentlemen, I thought that the Nuggets was going to finish with the number one seed this time 2 weeks ago. I was bragging to Brandon that we was going to get the 7th seed and we
You
was going
wanted
to
to
not have to
avoid
see
those
the
nuggets.
Nuggets
Yeah, you wanted to avoid
until
those nuggets. Understandably
I
so.
did not want to fight them. I didn't want to see them.
Understandably
But
so.
this Thunder team is some bad mamma jammas. Chet is good, but Chet is also young. So the fact that Zion is not out there means Chet is eating them boys alive. Chet is like, what? I
Your
get to
other
be
boys eating them
6'11"
alive
and
too. The other
yeah,
all star
and
over there,
Shy. Shy is they
killing them,
have no answer for Shy.
killing
They
them,
have no answer for
killing
Shy.
them.
And then so like that's the thing that's interesting about this about this NBA season is that the teams that were middling teams, like teams that were in the middle of the playoffs last year, have added that piece that they needed to make them into a really good team. Look at the Celtics. The Celtics added Porzingis because they desperately needed some size. The Thunder, just through natural maturation and him having a redshirt NBA season, Chet is with them. You look at Kyrie and Luca are finally doing their thing. I think that they got some big men that they didn't have. Ladies and gentlemen, I do like to sing the virtues of great big men because this playoffs is an excellent example. A lot of the teams that are not winning these games, they don't have no big men. That Pacers team that you didn't think was going to do anything when they made the trade for Siakam, this is why they got him. They got him to separate them. He doesn't even have to play Giannis, but they got him for Giannis. They didn't get him for, regular season games to do the run and gun thing that they trust Halliburton to do. They got him to get those good forwards in the West, in the East, to make sure that they continue on. So, to me, this is a done deal for most of these, but it's just sad to see. This is a true changing of the guard, ladies and gentlemen, and this gray in my beard is more apparent with this playoffs. So I'm gonna give it back to you, Brandon. How do you feel about it? Uh-oh. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. We're gonna have to have Brandon turn his sound back on. But just again, look at this. The Suns, who went out there and traded for horrible Bradley Beal, Mr. 40 in a loss. They traded for Mr. 40 in a loss, and they losing. Who would have
Oh, and
thought
I'm
that?
back. I'm back.
There you go. There you go.
So,
40 in a
I was gonna say,
loss.
getting into the lineup, guys, or to say the matchups, I should say. As I said, with what we have with the matchup of 1-8 with the Thunder and Pelicans, I feel like that's a done deal. The Clippers and the Mavs, that is an interesting issue of the fact of what you have on each side of the ball. I mean, of course, you have Luka Doncic and you have Kyrie Irving on one side, but you have Harden, you have Westbrook, and you have George all on the other side. And, there's a lot at stake, when we're talking about the Clippers and the legacy of those said players that I mentioned on the Clippers end, because so often, we've had that storyline of those players who I feel will end up being Hall of Famers, but will likely, in my opinion, be among those Hall of Famers that have not won a title, is that they typically have terrific regular seasons, and then when it comes time to actually close it out, they have issues with actually sealing the deal and moving into the finals. So when it comes to Luka Doncic, despite the fact that you had that blowout that happened in the first game, because I was watching that game one of this series, I always knew that it was still going to be a series despite what transpired in that first game. I know a lot of people were, kind of writing off the Mavs just out of that one game, but history has shown that Luka, you know, oftentimes, especially in the playoffs, gets a second wind and is able to kind of build a momentum that no one ever sees coming. It's kind of like what you have in, if we're talking about anime, those instances where, someone just all of a sudden just decides to go Super Saiyan, and they, take it up another level. And that's, what Luka has demonstrated in his playoff career, playing in the playoffs, of really making a series out of the matchups that he is involved in. So, I still believe, despite the fact that the Mavs have developed some good momentum for themselves in games 2 and 3, and taking the series lead, I still believe that the Clippers will even out the series, because there is so much at stake with the given legacies of Westbrook, of Harden, as well as George. So I don't know how you feel about that, but I believe that this might go it might go to a game 7, possibly.
Oh, I don't think it's going to go a game 7. Maybe they're going to win tonight. I mean tomorrow. Um, but
I do
I
have
can
the Mavs
tell.
winning the series, but I do believe that it is going to be, it's going to be a tight series.
I don't know, man. With Westbrook melting down like he did last night, I feel like that meltdown. Whenever people do that, I feel like that's when the series ends. Like historically, if you start to get to fighting, that means you don't have no basketball to play. Because if you could get back with the basketball, you wouldn't fight because you get thrown out the game for fighting. So I'm just, I'm like right there where I'm like, I hear you, but again, I think that this is just a changing of the guard. Like the Clippers have added have put together 4 former All Stars, but they were only good enough to get them the 6th seed in the West. Like normally if you have 4 All Stars or 4, you know, all of these guys have gotten MVP votes before. Paul George got MVP votes. Kawhi's got MVP votes. Westbrook and Harden were both MVPs. You would think on paper this would be a
That's
team
crazy to think about, right?
that you would think on paper they will be a team that will be gangbusters, but they're not because they're funnily put together. And this is the other thing. There is no big man that they can get a double team off of. And unfortunately, to do anything in this West, you have to be able to do that. And, you know, Westbrook is a good defender, but Harden being a bad defender on the wing hurts them because Dallas has 2 amazing guards. So one of them dudes is going to have Harden on him, and once he gets on them, it's barbecue chicken. Like it's going to be 2 points or 3 or and 1. So it's this is like when you look at the tea leaves of sports, like the writing ain't good. Like when we drew the Nuggets, the writing wasn't good. When the Clippers drew who they drew, it wasn't good. So it's just the way that this is played out, it's over. I think
I was
the
gonna say,
only
go ahead.
I was going to say the only thing that we could really look forward to is this Heat Celtics series because that looks like it might could do something, and then maybe the Cavs in Orlando
Don't
because
worry, we're gonna get to it. I'm gonna make my way
yeah,
to each. We're gonna do
okay,
a
yeah,
brief
yeah.
synopsis on each, so we're gonna get to it. But you did say something important, in that, and I hadn't even thought about it. Is you have 4 former MVPs, but again, on paper, that looks terrific that you have 4 former MVPs. But when you say you have 4 former MVPs, that also tells me that you have 4 alphas on the team, and you have 4 people that are, trying to be the main guy on the team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to the credit of I'll try to be a little objective and say to the credit of Harden, he has he has done an honorable job of trying to be a facilitator. Um, and the same would go for Westbrook too, of trying to be, trying to make a sacrifice for the team, of making that decision of coming off the bench, because that made the difference in the season. I remember when Harden first joined that team, and no one wanted to budge in terms of that starting lineup of who was going to come off the bench and who didn't. But to Westbrook's credit, he did make the sacrifice to come off the bench, and since then they have seen a decent amount of success. But still, at the end of the day, underneath all of that, you still have four guys who, you know, for better or for worse, believe that they're the guy. So, it makes things tricky when you're talking about the nature of the lineup of your team. And then on top of that, too, even without all of that, you still have a player who just cannot seem to remain healthy, and that's Kawhi Leonard.
That's Kawhi. He
Obviously,
hasn't, and that's
when
just
Kawhi
terrible.
Leonard is playing, when Kawhi Leonard is playing, undeniably he is, top 5 player in the league. But he has to be on the floor. Like you have to have
They
him in the
called
game. Like
y'all talk about Anthony Davis for this exact reason, but nobody gives. It's because Kawhi is quiet and he don't wear outlandish outfits. I feel like if Kawhi was dressing like with that pink shirt like AD did before Game 3, I saw that shirt. I was like, oh, we about to lose, dog. I don't know what's about to happen.
he bring too much attention to himself. So I'll give you that. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy to think, that you have that stat of you having 4 MVPs, but I feel like it's a combination of a lot of things. Even though you have players that seemingly are trying to do things for the betterment of the team, I still feel underneath it all, they're still kind of you know conflicting against one another in terms of, okay, when is it my turn? Is it your turn now? When is it my turn? Okay, it's your turn now. Like them trying to figure out like how that's going to like work. So I still believe, even despite all of those said issues, that I really do believe that they do have something to fight for, and that they are fighting, for their respective legacies, because in the history of the playoffs, they have time and time again demonstrated that they cannot, seal the deal, that they cannot close the deal and get to the finals. So, given that prior history, I do believe that they are going to try to, give as much effort as possible to push this series as far as it could possibly go. However, based off of the theme that we've
Silver
mentioned,
Rocco.
I still believe that youth is going to take over, when it's all said and done. So I do have that series going to Game 7. I don't believe the series is over, despite the minor momentum that the Mavs have currently right now.
Yeah.
But still, at the end of the day, Luka is not a great defender either. So you could take advantage of the fact that he is not a decent defender either. So you have that on that end as well. Um, all right, now getting into the Timberwolves and the Suns, similar to what we have with the Thunder and the
Oh, did you
Pelicans.
see the quote that Bradley put out this morning?
No, please share. I missed it, man.
So, ladies and gentlemen, hold on. This is breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. Bradley Beal. I've never been swept a day in my life. I'll be damned if that happens. Like, come on, Bradley. You got to make the playoffs to get swept, Bradley. You can't say stuff like this. This is the thing that frustrates me about basketball fans. We act like if you don't make the playoffs, you weren't a huge loser that year. But Bradley, for years was a dog. And not a dog in the way that we like to say, like he got that dog in him. No, he was a poodle, ladies and gentlemen. He was a poodle. He was a show dog. You bring him around and you show him, and you say he can score 40 points. And people are like, oh, wow, Bradley scores 40. Then you look at the win-loss column, and it'd be 30 and 52, 31 and 49, all kinds of crazy scores. And records that don't mean anything. And again, this is the problem, ladies and gentlemen, that this is roster construction. They're losing to the Timberwolves because they don't got no point guard. Like all of this stuff about Bradley Beal and your boy Devin Booker,
and
they are
Cat.
the same player.
Yeah,
They
but
shouldn't have been on the same team.
we've had this conversation before. It's similar to it's actually weirdly similar to the Clippers in that
It's very similar.
you have this lineup that on paper, seems phenomenal, seems out of this world, but when you really, try to consider the nuts and bolts of how that's going to work, you have three players that are all wing players. Like
All.
when you are constructing a lineup, you have to have players that complement one another. You at some point, while it's great to have, terrific scoring wings, you have to have a facilitator. You have to have someone who is a stopper at the rim, or someone who at least will discourage someone to go to the rim, even if they don't, if they're not explicitly, a shot blocker, they at least, give a slasher pause to actually go to the rim.
Hmm.
So, like when you're talking about the Phoenix Suns, outside of those three players, who you got?
Who do you have on this team other than them three dudes?
So
I don't know
once
them.
once you take that out of the picture, if you have an entire squad, which is what the Timberwolves have, yes, they have, Towns, and yes, they have Ant, but they have some other, decent role players on their team. And when you're talking about those role players, again, people knowing their roles and that are they are complements to all the other players on their team. Everyone is a complement to each other, and in terms of how that team functions, and you don't have that with the Suns. So
Hmm.
um, it's unfortunate that you have all three of these players on the Phoenix Suns and they still seemingly will not make it past the first round. That's wild to say.
I mean,
But again,
we
at the
knew
end
they
of the
weren't going to
day,
be that
in
good at the
terms of
beginning of
how
the year.
they
This
match
is
up,
what I said, ladies and gentlemen.
they're very top heavy. And when you get past those three, you don't have anything. So I know on paper it seems real sexy to have all three players on your team. But when you really when you get down to the nuts and bolts of that team overall, it doesn't make any sense. They're all, terrific scorers, terrific players, but you know, they are. It's in a lot of cases, all three of those players are redundant to each other. If you're getting another player, get another player that brings something else to the team other than the same exact thing. So, um,
Do you think that this
now getting
do you think that this
into what we have.
can you hear me? I was going to ask before we move on. Do you think that this is a
Yes, I can hear
do
you.
you
Go
think
ahead.
that this is a demerit on Kevin Durant's
Yeah.
um legacy? Because the big thing with him is they were saying that he's not a bus driver, and you know if this don't look like you pulling that bell, I feel like this is a bus rider thing like anything else. Because since
I
the
feel
only
like, yeah,
time you
yeah,
could
he's gonna have to take some of the blame. I mean, obviously the organization, plays a factor because they're, signing the checks and everything. The organization, plays a role, and the ownership plays a role. But yeah, I feel like he plays a role into that blame too, because you're still looking to all three of those players to sign off of saying, yeah, and I feel like he has that amount of influence to be able to say, yeah, go get that guy. Like, I would love to play with, so and so. So,
hmm
um, at the end of the day, he would still be able to, have that kind of say of saying, what do you guys think of so and so? Like, I feel because we need this on the team, this is what this player could bring to the team versus something that we already have. Like, I feel like Kevin Durant, and you and I can both agree with this. Kevin Durant is a great basketball mind in terms of his IQ for the game. And so if you're considering the IQ that he has for the game, you would think that if it comes to the organization, you know, uh, reaching out to him and saying, what he thinks of certain things. Obviously, at the end of the day, they have the executive decision of deciding and making the final call. But if they're reaching out to him and asking him, how do you feel about, having this player or this player, you have to take some of the blame, for what the final result is, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. I think this, it never really was a conversation who was better, Kevin Durant or LeBron James, but this definitely cements that LeBron is the GOAT of this generation. Even better than Steph, because
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm so
Steph needed KD to beat LeBron, and LeBron needed Steph to beat LeBron. So I just feel like,
Mr. Spills, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because the next series you're going to talk about is the Nuggets and the Lakers.
What series?
As it stands, the Nuggets have a 2? No, a 3
it's
series.
It's a 3-0. This is over. This was over. I told my friends in my group chat, ladies and gentlemen, I told them. They were like, maybe y'all could win game 3. I said, we just lost a 20-point lead. You don't lose a 20-point lead in the playoffs and ever win a game after that. Generally, if you lose a 20-point lead, they know y'all plays. I saw a post where they was like, Mike Malone is just putting up practice plays against them. All right, well, what happens? What happens if Joker gets in foul trouble early? Can we just keep him in the game and just let him not play defense and see if we can win that way? All right, what happens if, we have different people play point guard? Let's get different point guards in here. Yeah, they're doing all kinds of stuff to us. Let's work on our lead. If we got a big deficit, how do we catch back up? They're doing all kinds of stuff. There's nothing we can do. Anthony Davis is averaging like 35, 15, and 4.
And it don't matter. It don't matter.
And he did it last year. That's the thing that really, like, Joker is so much better right now than Anthony Davis, that he's been doing this every time that they play each other. Like that first game in the playoffs last year where he blocked like 4 shots in the first half and he just looked like a monster, and then we lost by 15 anyway. Like, there's nothing we can do with that man from that country. Like, we can't do nothing with him. He rides horses and he dresses like movie characters, and we can't do anything with him.
He is him.
He's him. It's just nothing you can do about it. He don't jump high. He don't run fast. But that don't matter. Basketball is not about jumping high and running fast. It's about putting the ball in the basket and sharing. Like, that's what, all of these stories.
That goal.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Like I said, that and Murray, man, like, I remember
they say he looked like prime Kobe.
I remember people forget this. I remember in the bubble when he was playing your Lakers, and he was showing little glimpses of what we're now getting. Even back then, a couple of years ago, I was like, Murray, nice. Murray's all right. Murray is nice. So
that's what I knew he was good.
Yeah, you think I don't know if you think your Lakers are going to steal a game. I have them sweeping.
No. If we was going to steal a game, it would have been game 2 and game 3, because we beat them in game 2 and we demoralized them, and maybe we could have won game 4. But it's 3-0 now. But I will say this: if LeBron comes back from 3-0, which is an impossibility, but if he comes back from 3-0, he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT
against the world champion Nuggets.
I feel like that's just one of the things. You would just be like, hey, man,
it'd be hard.
I've seen him in situations. Because he would have done this, and then he took that team last year that was a play-in team to the conference finals, and then he beat y'all when y'all was 73-9. So I just feel like those are insurmountable things. As a 40-year-old,
it'd be hard to argue. That would be a valid argument. Right now, it's nowhere close, but you would have an argument there. So I'm saying between my GOAT and the supposed GOAT is not close. But we'll leave that for another conversation. But so sweep on your team.
It's a sweep. No, yeah. Go call the janitor. Get Mr. Sandman out here.
All right, so
It's over.
skipping ahead and going into our going to the east side, we have the Celtics and the Heat, and just as you were saying, Spills, uh, this is going to be an interesting series because kind of similar to what I was mentioning with the issue with the players that we have in the Clippers. We've had this band of Celtics, playing for a decent amount of time, and they've had some success, but at the same time, they weren't able to seal the deal against my Warriors, and all this season there has been so much hype surrounding them being the best team in basketball, and while they have had uh, a stellar regular season, with the series being tied right now, it still kind of allows some concern of, are we still going to get those issues of prior years of them not being able to play up to their potential? So, despite the fact that we have a 1-8 seed, unlike what we had in the West Coast, this may actually turn out to be a series. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think this is definitely has the possibility to turn into a series. The Heat's culture is they build teams for the playoffs. They don't really build teams for the regular season, which
Very
I don't
hard
understand
every
why
time.
teams don't do that.
Yeah, you need to be that
I
way in the playoff. Hard nose.
I feel like that they've got tough wings. They've got depth to the eighth or ninth player, which you really need in the playoffs. Um,
Yes.
and I feel like the two J's are I'm sorry, the two Tatum and Brown are afraid of Jimmy Butler. Honestly, I feel like Jimmy Butler takes their heart every time they see him, no matter where he's seated. So seeing that kind of guy year in and year out, and he's always beating you, I feel like if they're going to make their turn to greatness, they've got to beat this team. They added Porzingis, like we said earlier. They added a big man that kind of and they separated themselves this year. They were the best team in the league. So the fact that they're having trouble
Yeah.
with Miami is kind of surprising, but not really, because again, they designed their team for the regular season. Like, it's easy to beat people in the regular season. You play them. Like, I feel like we don't really, because playoff NBA basketball and regular season NBA basketball is two different monsters. Like, a lot of the things that they use for roster construction of teams, excuse me, is based on 82 games. And, a lot of that stuff with the with how we look at people scoring and stuff, that stuff changes in the playoffs. And most people, it's harder in the playoffs because you're playing against better defense. We know people can game plan for you. So a lot of the pin down, like cheap plays and backdoor cut kind of plays that you get during the regular season, just because people don't really have an experience with you, or it's the third game in 5 days, and we didn't really prepare for this. It's completely different in the playoffs. But I feel like it couldn't happen to a better team. It couldn't happen to a better team to be down like that, to be struggling with the 8 seed. So, if they get kicked out of playoffs like us, it'll hurt if LeBron loses. But if the Celtics don't make it, so happy. So happy.
It's going to be, I was going to say, it's going to have to be a rebuild year at that point, because I feel like the theme for this year would be just the phrase "no excuses." You went out and got Porzingis.
Yep.
You had dominant wings, you had talented wings, and that was the one thing that you needed, was like an effective big man. You needed some size, and you went out and got that. So now there really isn't any excuse as to why A, you can't get to the finals, and B, why you can't close it out and actually win a title. So yeah, as I said, I believe this is going to be an interesting series just by virtue of what you said, of just the culture at the Heat, where they're very hard nosed. And as you get into the playoffs, I feel like the regular season is a lot looser than the playoffs. Playoffs, you're really going in. It's far more hard nosed because you're really going into the trenches against another team versus having kind of like a lax uh, uh, a lax feel of feeling out teams throughout the season. You are pretty much entrenched with that one team for a series, and really getting into the deep nuts and bolts of what those matchups are and how you are going to game plan of beating them 4 times within a series. And that looks completely different than you may play that team once but not play them again for like another month or another couple of months. So or I should say a couple of weeks. It's a completely different feel than what you have when you have that. And then on top of that too, the stakes. When you're talking about the stakes that are that you have versus the regular season is obviously far different. So it really shows you, the will of certain players of will they be able to meet the moment of the stakes that are at play when you're talking about the playoffs and trying to win a series. So getting into the the next lineup that we have there in the East, we have the Cavs and the Magic, and this one seemed like a done deal, but based off of what we had in the most recent game with the Magic in Game 3, they were able to pretty much route the Cavaliers in Game 3, making it uh, making it into a series by getting that Game 3. So perhaps by being able to route and blow out the Cavs, they're able to develop some confidence and to establish some momentum going forward. This one is still a little too hard to tell, but I, from what I know about the Cavaliers and the lineup that they have, for me, I still feel like this Game 3 was kind of like a misnomer or aberration, and I still feel like the Cavs can pull that one out. But what are your thoughts on that series?
I feel like the Cavs are great. They're a good team, but they just they're not ready for Orlando, man. Like the Orlando surprisingly got horses now. With Banchero and Suggs and Wagner, surprisingly, there's nothing they could do with those boys. It's really nothing they could do with them. I feel like because
So
the
you believe they want to even out the series and take the lead?
no, I think Orlando's going to close it out in 5. I think it's over. I think it's over. I feel like you know the the guys who are good on the Magic
So
are
hold on,
better
you
than the
said that you
guys who
believe the
they're playing.
Magic. You said that you believe the Magic are going to take it in 5 games because they've already lost 2 games.
Oh no, no, no! I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm lying. I'm
Meaning
lying.
the Cavs.
I think yeah, I think the Cavs are going to take it out because again, the Orlando's got good guys, but
But they're young.
they're young, and I just feel like making the playoffs for them was it. And that happens a lot of times. Like it happens in the NCAA. It happens in playoff sports all the time. Like you're a team who's been terrible for a long time. You finally make the playoffs.
Okay,
Like
we're done.
they're happy. Yeah,
Yeah.
we made the playoffs. They thought we wasn't good, but look at us. We a 5 seed. But then you got to actually play in the playoffs. So I think it's over. Whenever teams lose demoralizing losses like this, I feel like it be the series is over. Once they take your heart, once you start fighting, essentially, like I said with Westbrook last night, it's over.
Well, no, that's what I was saying. So in Game 3, it was a 2-0 lead, and the Magic they were able to blow out the Cavs in Game 3. So I
Yeah,
mean,
but I don't
they
really worry
have.
about that.
You think that's the aberration?
Yeah, I feel like you could get a game. These are professional players. In the West, they're not acting like professional players, but that's because they got a bunch of old guys. If they didn't have all these old guys on their team, maybe they would play and win some games that they should. But they won game 3, but they had dropped 2 games already. If you drop 2 games, to me, you might win one game at home. Maybe they can win another game at home, but I don't see them beating Cleveland in Cleveland. And I also don't see Cleveland coming back and losing again. I feel like they were just like, hey, man, we got to go to Orlando. Don't nobody like going to Orlando? Because I know I don't like going to Orlando. Um, you know,
Orlando any day, but go ahead. That's just me. I go to Orlando.
okay, sure. It's Orlando's great that first day. The first day you're there, you go to the parks and stuff. Then that second day, you
See, that's
like,
why I'm a little biased towards the parks and things. So
sure,
maybe
but if you're
outside
going
of
to
that,
play a basketball game, you're not spending no time at the parks. At the parks, you're not having
that's
any of that kind of fun.
okay. Fair
That's
enough.
why they never
Fair enough.
get any free agents. That's why they have to draft number 1 picks and keep them there for a couple of years and make them feel bad for wanting to actually live in an American city, not a theme park that is posing as a city. But I feel, anytime you go to that airport and you see all those families, you're like, I don't want to be here, man. It's just, oh, I don't want to pay this
You have
Disney
a
tax or
bias
anything.
against Orlando, but now we'll
I've been
save
there
that for
6
another day.
times. I've been to Orlando 6 times, ladies and gentlemen, and I've had fun when I was there, but I can have way more fun than the fun that I had in Orlando. Love the town. It's a great place, but it is what it is. But yeah, teams do this all the time. They'll lose the first 2 games, and then they'll be like, we can't go to the barbershop back home if we lose this game 3 in front of everybody, like the Lakers did. So they decide to play for real. But it's just over, man. It'll be 5. I got 5 with this one. I don't got to go in more than 5. They won the game that they was going to win, and then they can say, we won a playoff game last year. And you'd be like, okay, you won a playoff game. Because you're young will give you a pass. But if they were not, it would just, yeah. So let's move on to the next one.
Yes, for sure. And getting into our 3-6 lineup of the Bucks and the Pacers, I feel like again we have some more deja vu of you have players that have not seen a lot of success in the postseason, um, and outside of obviously the one title that Giannis and company, Middleton, won. Outside of that, of that continued success, there has been instances in the playoffs where these Bucks teams have not, progressed as far as many folks would assume they would, going into the postseason. Uh, it's unfortunate too, even with this year's team, because there are some injuries that are plaguing this team, with the Greek Freak, and then even in the last game, there was a concerning potential injury that happened with Dame. So while I do believe this will still at least get to 6 games, I don't know if the Bucks will be able to overcome the injuries that they have. So I have the Pacers, advancing forward out of this series. But what are your thoughts, Spills?
I feel like it was Tyrese time last night. It
It
wasn't no Dame
was
time. It was Tyrese time. He said, no, no, no,
for
ladies and gentlemen. I'm about to win this game for us. We're not playing around with these boys. We're not going to dibble dabble or anything like that. Sure, Dame Lillard got a game off us.
all this season, because I'll say that I've been guilty of it too. That I feel like a lot of people have really been sleeping on Halliburton and
You
what
slept
he
on him
is.
when they traded for Siakam, and I told you that. I said, hey, man,
I'll
this
admit
is
it.
exactly what this team needed. I said, I
I don't
don't.
think he's a bad player. That's the thing. I don't think he's a bad player, but I didn't
Yeah,
see this. I didn't
yeah.
see this coming. So that's testament to you, man, to Halliburton, and proving people wrong, because I didn't see this in you, man. I'll be honest, and even though I believe that you are a talented player, and what you've been able to accomplish, this season has been, remarkable, especially with what you've been doing with your assists and what you've been averaging with that, and all the facets of how you have been able to be effective for your team. You showing me some things, man. You are really showing me some things that I did not see in you, or I did not believe that you had in you. So kudos to you. But yeah, I do have them winning this series because a you have a team that is already kind of beaten up. But that
Mm-hmm.
that injury that we had, or that whatever that injury turns out to be that we saw from Dame in the last game that they played, that has me a little concerned because like you don't have Greek Freak already, so you're going to be relying upon your shot making in order to get you through this series. And if you're taking Dame out of the picture, or you're hampering him in any type of way, it's not looking too good for your aspirations of moving forward in the series. So
Yeah, and a lot of times these series come down to who's healthy, and not having the Greek Freak really hurts this team. I've heard people say that now Giannis is the second best power forward all time. I don't say that. I don't think he's there yet, but I can see how you could make that kind of an argument. Um, because I feel like he's changed the game in such a way for bigs, for that stretch four, as you could call them, or you're
yeah,
slashing four.
yeah.
Um, but he's not playing, so I don't know where they're going to get it from. Last night they got 42 out of Middleton, and they got 28 out of Lillard. Generally, if you got two guys to score around 60 points, generally you could win a game like that. But
Sorry, but
they didn't
Halliburton
get
was
anything
killing.
from
If I
their
recall,
bench.
Halliburton had a triple double in that
He
game.
had a triple double and an impressive one, 18, 10, and 16.
That's
He
ridiculous.
was dropping dimes.
Ridiculous. So yeah,
Ridiculous. So there's nothing you can do with it.
nah. And
He's
I'm glad that theme of being healthy, plays into the last and final series matchup that we'll talk about, and that's the Knicks and the Sixers. And talking about the Knicks and the Sixers, under normal circumstances, you would think, even despite the seating that we have here, that the advantage would go towards the Sixers. But you do have a hobbled Embiid. To his credit, he is playing in the series, but he is not 100%.
He
Um,
looked 100% last game though.
I think that was just heart. Honestly, it was all
Yeah,
heart.
for
I don't
sure,
think
for
it's
sure.
necessarily because he's 100%. Um, so right now, as the series is currently stands, is 2-1 in the favor of the New York Knicks. I don't know, man. Like this is a series that kind of has me going either way. Um, I don't think that the Sixers are going to be able to get over the hump with having Embiid not being 100%, but I don't believe it's going to be a sweep. I do believe this is going to be a fight.
I think this has the potential to go 7 games because the Knicks don't really have a big man to get Embiid, and even though he's hobbled, he scored 50 last game. The fact that he can go out and get 50
Yeah.
against them,
Yeah.
I don't know if he could do that every night, but maybe he could do that 3 out of the next 4 games. I'm not sure of that,
Yeah.
but we'll see. 3 out of the next 4, they could win the series, but I think it comes down to that because the rest of these guys are kind of pushes. I think that Brunson is better than Maxey, but he's not enough better than Maxey than Embiid is for their center. So there's a push there. I feel like the rest of the guys are just kind of middling. Like Kelly Oubre, I love Tsunami Poppy. He's sad he got hit in that car accident, but we're not looking for him to beat them. This is really the Joel Embiid show, and if he can carry him, he can carry him. But I don't think he will be able to. I did see his leg was bleeding, and when your leg is bleeding and you didn't get like stabbed or something, that's a scary proposition. That means his surgery hasn't healed all the way, and he still has very thin skin, literally. So I, I I love this for the Knicks though. They've been middling for so long. We're happy to see them in the playoffs doing well, a 2 seed at that. Who knew when the season started? If I told you that the Knicks was going to be a 2 seed, would you believe me? You'd have said, Spillman, I want to meet your dealer because he's got strong drugs. That's what you're doing now. You're doing drugs, sir. Because there's no way the New York Knicks are going to be. Did they trade for somebody? Oh, they got the same team. They're running back out here. How are they gonna make it? How are they gonna be a 2 seed? So
Uh,
I'm just,
Hilarious.
good for the Knicks. Good for the
So
Knicks.
we'll see, what we have going forward. There are a couple of games that are taking place today. You do have the Pelicans and the Thunder playing in a little bit. The Nuggets and Lakers playing later on tonight. The Celtics and the
Yeah.
Heat are playing tonight, as well as the Cavs and the Magic. So it should be interesting to see how things progress. And of course, as we get into next week, probably around that time, we will probably be talking about some round two matchups because I have a
Oh, it's over for most of these teams, ladies and gentlemen. It's round two already.
sweeps
This is
coming.
this is what you call a formality. Get the
So
janitor out here.
yeah, so be prepared for that. But with that out of the way, let's now that we have the playoffs in the rearview mirror, we'll talk about our next story, and that's talking about Awesome Con. Of course, Awesome Con is the pop culture convention that we have here in the nation's capital, and it started in 2013 with through the means of friend to the show, Ben Penrod, who is a showrunner in his own right, not just creating Awesome Con, but other shows as well. As a matter of fact, we had him on the show recently talking about his first Comic Con that he started, which was Annapolis Comic Con, but also co created with Steve Anderson of Third Eye Comics. It saw 7,000 plus people when it was first brought to the DC Convention Center back in 2013, and just thinking back on that show with it now being its 11th birthday, 11th anniversary, however way you want to call it, it's just been amazing to see how that growth has happened of them being in gosh and me I'm trying to recall I'm trying to remember what part, the east salon, so the east salon of the convention center. So if you're entering into that convention center, what you have there right one to the right side, that room where th- these days is pretty much used either for like coat check, or it's being used for what is it, a security check. That was the whole convention. I mentioned it before, of that being just the whole exhibit hall floor, and them using each of those smaller meeting rooms towards the back of that first building as their panel rooms. That was it. We didn't have downstairs, you didn't have upstairs, like you didn't have any of that. And just to see the where it's progressed to now, where it's like quadrupled its size, many times over from where it was, 11 years ago, is quite, incredible. So, happy 11th birthday to Awesome Con. I know you went for your first time spills this year. Any thoughts on that being 11 years?
Excuse me. I will
Yeah.
say that the Awesome Con is like, this is crazy to say, but it might be the second biggest draw of the year at the convention center outside of the car show. Um, I can't think of anything that's as big as that uses the space that comes every year. Maybe there are other shows that are things that I'm not
We do
aware
have
of, like
other conferences and things that do go there, but it is a staple. Undeniably, it is a
for
staple in
sure.
DC.
As a person who's lived in the DC area for his whole life and seen some of the things that go through, Awesome Con is definitely like that Awesome Con weekend. Even though I did not attend before, I knew that it was happening because you could definitely see, the changes in the area. You see people on the metro or downtown, or just the whole vibe. Like the community comes out and supports. So happy to see that. But again, happy to see that Awesome Con has been so successful. It's a draw for the city, and it makes the city more appealing to more people. So I'm just happy to see that it's done as well as it has. It's really good to see the folks that put it on to be successful. We all have frequented their things, not just from the cons perspective, but like from comic book shops and all those other things. Third Eye Comics, pretty big. Yep, yep. Shout out to Ray. Happy birthday, awesome con. But we're just, on to see that the hard work does pay off. So, again, ladies and gentlemen, this is proof positive that if you got an idea, stick with it, because you never know where it could go if you just stick with it. I'm sure the first year they didn't know that it would continue for 11 years. I'm sure if you told them that it would go for 11 years, they'd be like, "That'd be crazy. We'd be surprised." But just happy to see that
And
they've
I was gonna
made
say
it.
this is a credit to Ben, one of the co-creators. Ben being a creator of the show, is that all of his other shows, even his first show is still going strong. So that being Annapolis Comic Con, he still does that show. A lot of times when you quote unquote move up into the big leagues, which you guys are more than welcome. My recent conversation, we kind of dive deep into that, but just to give you the spark notes of it, of him just still adhering to that mission of focusing on comics. He could have very easily got rid of that show and started focusing on his quote unquote big pop culture extravaganzas that he has with Awesome Con, and these days he has with some of his other shows like Twin Cities Comic Con or Alaska Comic Con. But to his credit, he still continues to do that show, and it's a smaller show, but he still continues to do it consistently year after year. And I wanted to put up this point too. So Ray was talking about Otakon, but yes, Awesome Con has been there longer at the DC Convention Center. Otakon has been around for quite a while, but just recently has moved to DC in the last few years. Yeah. So moving on, I wanted to get into a fun video, and I'm going to share it now. This was sent by director Fede Alvarez. And if you're not familiar with Fede Alvarez, Fede Alvarez was Fede
Yeah, I'm not
Alvarez
doing
is
anything.
the director. No, it did it. You didn't see it. It did do it. The fireworks actually. But if you saw it for Fede Alvarez, he is the director of the remake that we have for Evil Dead. But this past week, I should say actually yesterday. I'm saying this past week, but yesterday, in fact, he had posted a video of what he was doing on the upcoming Alien film, and that film being Alien Romulus. I'm gonna see if I can get this picture, or should say this video that he released for you guys. And it was actually in honor of Alien Day. So if you're not familiar, see if I can get it here. Here we go. If you're not familiar with Alien Day, it deals with, is actually a in honor of the planet in which our characters or the place in which our characters actually visit in the first Alien film, because it goes has that moniker of 426 in its name. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Okay, I think I got it here. Here we go. But basically, this was with Fede Alvarez giving us a video of the face hugger that we're going to see in the upcoming, Alien Romulus that arrives in theaters later this summer in August. Let me see if I can get it up here. There you go. So yeah, it was him playing basically with the puppet of the face hugger that we're going to be seeing in the Alien Romulus film. But yeah, as I said, he had posted it yesterday. Since yesterday was 426, it was in honor of Alien Day, and basically, as I said, if you're not familiar with Alien Day, it's basically an annual, occasion that was officially, promoted by 20th Century Fox. I want to say about, I guess it would be 8 years ago, 2016, where they gave that designation based off of the LV 426 planetoid, where the space truckers and the original aliens discover, of course, the derelict ship, and of course the face hugger that caused a whole bunch of mayhem in that first film. So, Spillman, you see this. I know that there has been, a lot of talk of how a lot of people have been encouraged by the practical effects that seemingly are going to be used in this film, over the CG. And obviously, there will be some CG, but in terms of that ratio of effects that are going to be used, for the most part, it's going to be mostly practical effects. You see this? What is it? Yeah. How does it make you feel regarding your anticipation for the upcoming Alien?
Ladies and gentlemen, I have had a point of view that has been pretty stayed and, on the same thing. Do you see how the people in this video are reacting to the thing that's in the room? Because they can see it and they can hear it. They can kind of even feel it moving through the room. Because when something's in the room, you can feel it. You can't act, these are great actors and acting is great, but it's something different when it's a guy with a green scary mask on a stick that he's holding up and he's like, this is where the monster is, versus, oh, that's the monster. Like, if they would have put this costume on a little small dog, not even on a remote control device like they have it on, if the little dog is running around, people would be afraid of the little dog, even though they know this is a small dog in a costume. Because real movement and real anything, something that you can see, practical effects, even if it's something that's sillily put together like a dog in a costume, it's still much more like riveting than the CGI effects that they put in post that they do a lot of times with this kind of stuff. So to me, I've been preaching this since I've been on the show that, I understand that it's easier and sometimes it looks better in post, but it's something about the soul of the movie making process, that old processes like practical effects and animatronics and stuff just seem to work well. You see how this guy's on his phone and he's still looking at the robot, even though he's totally not involved. He's still like, hey, I don't know what's going on with this thing. I know it's essentially a automaton and it's not a real face hugger, but my brain still is like, it's something about, you can see something on the ground moving that in the back of your head, your medulla oblongata, all the way back, and they say the reptile part of your brain, you're like, oh no, that's something ain't right with what's going on. Stuff is not supposed to be moving like that. So I'm proud to see that, people in Hollywood are pushing back and trying to get back to practical effects.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that, obviously I like, I have friends who are digital artists and do that kind of stuff. They serve a big part in making movies. Like, I don't feel like if it was completely the other way where it was only practical effects, we wouldn't have something like the Marvel Universe, because you couldn't do the Marvel Universe with just practical effects. You could do some of the stuff, but others of the stuff just wouldn't look right. So to me, the blend to blend it is good too. So I feel like these practical effects are something that engenders the ability to act. Like, it's easier to act with a dog in the room than with a CGI dog. Not saying that the CGI dog doesn't look better. Like, you can make the CGI dog do whatever you want to. He could say Brandon is the greatest podcast host in the history of the world. That's great. But, if you have actors looking at a real dog, they have real emotions, and that comes through on camera. So to me, I just think that this is just I wish that they would do more of this in Hollywood. I've always been big on practical effects, and I just think it would work good.
Yeah, for sure. And I couldn't have said it any better in terms of like your passion for what is it, for practical effects, because if anyone knows anything about me, they know that, I love the film The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing. It is a hallmark when it comes to talking about visual effects, especially practical effects in terms of how much they were able to do in real time versus trying to do something in the computer, which is why the remake, that was done, or I should say, not even the remake, the prequel that was done years later got so much flack is because you know you have the original film that is practical effects, yet you're not sticking to that same philosophy when you're talking about another film that's supposed to be happening within that same universe. So if you're doing a sequel, if you're doing a prequel to a film that is considered to be one of the best examples, you have people in the industry that study that film in order to be inspired on how to do or how to approach their practical effects, animatronics, puppets, things like that. And to not do that and to not, continue to do that for, that other film, for that prequel, was, I feel like a missed opportunity, because I'm sure that there could have been some awesome things that they could have done with practical effects. Because just as you saw there, you know, we can do some pretty amazing things with practical effects in real time. And speaking as someone who has acted, you know, if you are have something to react off of, don't get me wrong, it is it is necessary to be able to do make believe and to imagine certain things. But if it is possible to have it physically in the room there with you, you're going to get I feel like a far more authentic reaction, or I should say, not necessarily a far more authentic reaction. It's going to be easier for your actor to have a far more authentic reaction if they physically have that thing in there with them versus them having to really dig deep into their imagination of trying to make that real for themselves. Just like you said, if you just have a stick with a face on it. So,
Hmm.
um, or you have, like, just some blue screen there, so, or green screen. So, I I can't say enough, about this film. I know it's still early days, and there have been so many times where films have burned me, so to speak, where they seem very promising, and then they end up being kind of disappointing. But I do have high hopes, for this installment, and how it turns out. So I'm definitely looking forward to August and checking out the film. Hopefully, fingers crossed that they actually end up screening it at San Diego, because that's not that far removed from the release date of the film. And I've gone to awesome cons again where a film was releasing in August and we were able to see it a month early at San Diego. So we'll see. Um, Now, getting into our last and final story, I wanted to get into, of course, let me bring it up here. You guys saw it in the background. The Merc with the Mouth, aka Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool. Of course, he had the trailer to the highly anticipated, quote unquote, Deadpool 3. We have Deadpool and Wolverine, but we could say aka Deadpool 3. They did show a trailer for us, that gave us, a further look into the variant that we're going to have with Hugh Jackman, and some of the crazy multiverse shenanigans that will happen, in this film. Spillman, what are your thoughts on what was revealed in this new trailer? And does it really change, your hype meter for this film, or you already are, still at the same level because you're already looking forward to it?
Oh, I'm looking forward to this, ladies and gentlemen. I just I've said it over and over again, because of the way that they um sold off everything in the 90s for Marvel. these characters, Wolverine especially, has not really been um in the MCU. And Wolverine is a top 5 comic book character. Like, Wolverine is such an important comic book character that now you can't really have a team without a guy who goes in and, you know, his job is to go in, and maybe he's not going to make it back, but we figure he will because he's the toughest guy in the world. So this was great. There was lots of Easter eggs in the trailer. I like the Lee Fields feet or that
Yeah.
store thing in the background. That was really cool. They showed us Cassandra Nova. She looks very close to the comics. I've seen things where they talk about how um all of the villains from previous like X-Men movies are in this movie. So
Oh
outside of
yeah.
maybe
Glad
Magneto.
you brought it up. Tell you what, while you're doing that, I'm gonna share it so that way we could discuss
Yeah, so there's lots of Easter eggs in this trailer.
these.
I feel like this is going to be the movie of the summer for people of our ilk who like these kind of properties and shows. Um, they've been promote. I feel like they wouldn't promote this movie this hard if it wasn't a good movie. Like, unfortunately, I was looking with my coworker the other day. We were talking about the Captain America movie that got pushed back to next year. So, that doesn't give me like excitement. But this specifically, Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, um, back back in the saddle. This is as big as if they got Robert Downey Jr. to do a new Marvel movie. I think it's on that level. I think that Robert hasn't done a Marvel movie since Infinity War. He hasn't been in anything. They've used his likeness a little bit for like somber looks off into the sunset like that. But the fact that they've got Wolverine in this movie, and they've got Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine, really, X-Men is the franchise that got this whole thing started. Really, Blade got it started a little bit, but X-Men really like, oh no, this concept works. We can do it with real superheroes that people know that are successful and everything. So really excited to see where it goes. There's lots of Deadpool humor and stuff. I like that. He breaks the fourth wall a lot. It's just it looks like it's going to be a fun time. It looks like they're going to dump us into the MCU finally with the Marvel mutants. I'm really excited about that. Um, because Spider-Man is my favorite Marvel character, but the X-Men are the team. Like I like the Avengers and everything; they're great, but they ain't no X-Men. Until 2012, I didn't know that the Avengers had a song. X-Men had a song since 1993. So let's go, or 92. I
Yes,
just,
92.
I'm just really excited about it. Yeah, 92. So yeah, let's go.
So here we
Got lots of
go.
clips here.
Yeah, I wanted to be able to get into this. So you dived into some of the examples that we have here, and I'm not going to go over every single thing, but there were some things that were cool. Obviously, we have Logan in his iconic yellow
Iconic, ladies and gentlemen.
iconic costume. I am looking forward to, if they ever decide to do like what is it, the X Factor one that he has, but it's just still cool that we're able to see, this iconic one that we have from the comics because, for so long that, we had that phrase of from Cyclops, that burns into, I'm sure everyone's memory in that first film where he was like, uh, Wolverine said, "You guys actually, go out in these things," and he was like, "What do you prefer, yellow spandex?" And so, like, we actually have the actual legit, yellow costume. Go figure. Years later, 24 years later, how about that? So, getting into some of the other stuff that we have here, clearly, this is not the Wolverine that we know, but it looks like, getting into, some of the details here is, and this, I can't take, credit for this, but I did notice it as well, is he clearly is a variant that has done something that has, caused a lot of tragedy, in his timeline. And so one thing that immediately came to mind for me, because in thinking of what they've done in other films, like in the Logan film, they kind of switched the roles where they had Professor X being the culprit. I feel like they're actually going to do the legit, you know, um, storyline that they adapted in the Logan film, which is that instead of Professor X being the person who played a role in the destruction of the X-Men, that it would be far more tragic if it was Wolverine himself. Because just like you have in the comics, you do have that storyline in which, if I recall, it was, what was it, with Mysterio, right? If we're talking about, I don't know if you're familiar with that storyline, Spillman, but what we play with Mysterio, where Mysterio somehow convinces him that he's fighting a bunch of villains, and in doing so, he ends up taking out his whole squad. So I know we did an adaptation of that in Logan, and they switched it by having Professor X being the guy, but just like we have with the costume of them doing the authentic costume, we may actually get the authentic storyline of that authentic version of that storyline of him being the cause. So that would be interesting. I know another theory that's going out there is that it may be him never preventing Jean from causing destruction as Dark Phoenix, but that doesn't really seem like it would make enough sense for him to be as depressed as he seemingly would be. It would make far more sense if he is actually the culprit in taking out all his team members. So I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, those are the two theories that are going on right now, but I would lean more towards what we have in the comics of them adapting that, more authentically than them trying to continue a storyline from a X-Men installment that not many people care for anyway. So one other thing that I wanted to bring up, and you actually highlighted this, is what we have with Bill. So I'm gonna skip forward a bit, see if we can get this here, and they'll show it right. Let's see here. There we go. So Liefield's just so just little inside joke of course Rob Liefeld's uh um the criticism that people have of Rob Liefeld not being able to draw feet. So that was a nice touch. But I wanted to get, before we wrap up, I wanted to also get into um two other things. Of course, we have Cassandra Nova here. And if we're talking about, if anyone is not familiar with Cassandra Nova, she's like the evil twin sister of Professor X. Um, but the one thing that I did want to get into that was interesting is this shot. So you have basically, I guess, Ant-Man who died in his respective universe, and they're actually using the the deceased body of Ant-Man as a base of operations. Like, this is crazy. So yeah, yeah. But if we're looking at the characters that we have down here below, I don't know if it's clear enough for you guys to see. But if we're looking here on the left, I know there's not really any proof of it, but it is a bigger gentleman. So I know a lot of people are saying that this is Sabretooth. Um, there have been some set photos of there being of Tyler, what appears to be Tyler Mane, his version of Sabretooth from the first X-Men film, reappearing here in the Void, which was, of course, introduced in the Loki series. So this may potentially be Sabretooth. Down here, we may have Callisto from X-Men: The Last Stand, but a lot more clearer down here, who's crouched down. You have Toad. You have Lady Deathstrike, because you can see her claws there, and we have Azazel from First Class. on this end. And then over here on the vehicle, which was actually already spoiled in the teaser that we have for Deadpool Wolverine, we have Pyro. But I believe a lot of people are saying that the character that we have here is, which is another actual deep cut, not X-Men film, but it is a 20th century Fox Marvel movie, is that this is an iteration of the that we had in the Punisher film. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. But yeah, no, it's cool that we have a lot of these Easter eggs. One thing that I will give credit for with this trailer, I'll be honest that I wasn't blown away by the trailer, but I will say that um, that I am happy with the fact that this trailer didn't show us a whole bunch, which is seems to be with a lot of trailer and teasers these days. So with this one, um, I'm happy that we didn't get a whole lot that was spoiled for sure. But any final thoughts before we wrap up here?
On top of this, this has been great. Also, Disney's doing good things with this Marvel universe. I feel like, people complain about the Marvel movies not hitting like they used to, but they've
Hey, that
kind of
X Men
run through
that X-Men 97 hits hard. So if
that
anyone
X Men
hasn't watched it yet,
'97.
that
Oh my
joint's
God.
like the
No
evil like that.
spoilers, but episode 6 is about to blow your brains because these next couple of episodes about to be crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm excited to see what they do. But it's all X-Men all the time, and I'm just happy that the X-Men are back. I like to see them on the big screen. Um, so just happy to see it.
Yeah, for sure. But that is going to do it for this episode of This Week in Review. Once again, I want to thank my co-host, Spills, aka Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. Before I let you go, Spillman, can you tell folks where they can find you?
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's all love. It's all love. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Truly Spill. Look me up. Shot me a holla down, as they say in the streets. I think. But again, keep watching the X-Men '97. I like that the people on the internet be like, "This is not for children." Really? You think a show called '97 is for children? No, it's for people who was children in 1997, like me. So excited to see it. Let's go.
For sure, for sure. Because yeah, I would say there's definitely some things in that series, and I'm like, I can't believe y'all got away with doing that. But I'm not mad at you that you were able to put it in there.
That's
But
right.
it's like some
And
pretty mature,
literally put it in there. Good job, X-Men. Putting it in there.
yeah, some mature things. Like, wow, like y'all going for it. Like y'all, some of the stuff that the subject matter, the things that they imply, like in terms of like how some of these relationships are rolling. Like I'm like, wow, like
It's the real
y'all
X-Men.
really
This is the
making
real
this thing
X-Men.
mature. I
Yeah.
dig it, but I dig it that Disney allowed you guys to take it this far, but I'm down. I'm down with what y'all doing. So, but yes, you can find me once again, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me on X at Brandon Troy ENT, and of course Brandon Troy _ENT on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, guys, and see y'all soon. Peace.